You've seen the recipe for Mississippi pot roast all over TikTok, but I bet you've never seen it done on a smoker. Today I'll be sharing with you how to make this mouth-watering dish on your grill, and we're gonna be smoking this pot roast on my Kamado Joe. Hello and welcome to Grillin' and Chillin' with Coleman. And unless the real Coleman is sitting inside in the AC trying to avoid this Texas heat, I'm Coleman. My passion is helping grilling and barbecue enthusiasts become the backyard grill master they've always wanted to be. If you've spent any time on TikTok, you've seen a lot of people making this Mississippi pot roast, and they're doing it in the house in their slow cooker. Now, it's a great way to make it, and I've done it a few times myself, but the recipe is just missing one thing, that great barbecue smoke flavor that we love from our grill. So today, I'm gonna smoke that chuck roast for a few hours on my Kamado Joe before we slow cook it with all those other ingredients. And as a bonus, I'm gonna throw in a few potatoes to cook with that meat so that we can make some amazing mashed potatoes to go with it. So don't miss that near the end of the video. Let's get it fired up. It's awesome how easy this is to make, and I've actually made it a few times in the house in the slow cooker, but it's always missing something. It's missing that barbecue touch, that wonderful smoke flavor that we love so much. Now I'm starting off with a 3.5 pound Angus beef chuck roast, and I picked this up at the local grocery store for about $5 a pound, but watch for the sale. Sometimes you can find it a lot cheaper. The chuck roast actually comes from the shoulder of the cow, and a little tip, you can even use a pork shoulder for this recipe. All the fat and the marbling that you see in this cut of meat will actually render out, so don't trim it off. It'll leave you with plenty of delicious beef gravy. To prepare this big piece of beef, we really don't need to do much to it. We don't need to inject it or season it because we're going to be seasoning it really later. Now, one thing I do like to do just to hold it all together while it smokes is I like to tie it up with some butcher's twine. This twine will help hold it all together as that fat starts to render out and make it much easier to remove off the grill for the next steps.
Start off with a piece of butcher's twine that is longer than you need. Lay it out on the cutting board, then take your chuck roast and put it on its side on top of that twine. Wrap the twine around the outside of the roast and tie it tight in a double knot.
Now, as I said, this will help hold that roast together as the fat starts to render out. Now, as this warms up to room temperature here on the counter, let's go ahead and get our grill ready. We're gonna be smoking this chuck roast today for about 3 hours at 250 degrees, just to add a little smoke flavor to the meat. Now, this is a big piece of meat and it can take a lot of smoke, so I'm gonna be using hickory wood today as my smoke wood. Now, this roast won't be done cooking in 3 hours, but by then it'll have taken all the smoke flavor that it's gonna take in.
I always like to start off with a full load of lump charcoal, and since our cook today is about 6 hours, we're gonna need it. And as always, I never use lighter fluid and love using my propane torch. I'll put a link below to the one that I use. Now let's close the lid and let it come up to 250 degrees. It's been about 15 minutes and we're right at 250, so it's time to go ahead and add our smoke wood. For this cook, I'm gonna be using 3 large chunks of that hickory wood that I love so much. We're also gonna be using indirect heat on the Kamado Joe, so I'm gonna be adding in the deflector plates. And close and lock the lid.
I'm gonna let that hickory wood ignite and smoke for a few minutes before I put the roast on. Perfect time for a little hydration. As I said before, we're gonna smoke this roast for about 3 hours at 250 degrees, and there's really no need to monitor the meat temperature as it's really gonna be nowhere near done in 3 hours, so let's go ahead and get it on the grill.
I'm gonna place it right in the middle of the grill, right on the grates. Then close that lid back up.
Now that it's on the grill, we just got in a batch of our Grillin' and Chillin' stickers, and I'd love for you all to have one. Just pop on over to my website and click on the Contact Us tab. Send me your shipping address, and I'll mail one right out to you free of charge, and I'll even pay for the shipping. Now, I'll see you in 3 hours when this is done smoking. It's been 3 hours now, and it's time to get this roast off the grill and start braising. And we're gonna be doing that today in an aluminum roasting pan. And to be honest, I don't normally use a pan like this for this part of the process. I normally use a Dutch oven, and I put it right back on the grill. And this 12-inch Dutch oven is my favorite one to use for this. But I understand most of you probably don't have a 12-inch Dutch oven, so I'll be using this pan today, and it works just as well I just prefer using the cast iron. So let's go ahead and get it off the grill.
Now, I'm no superhero with iron hands. I have cotton gloves underneath these nitrile gloves. They really help protect my hands when handling hot meat right off the grill. They also give me better control than those heavy grill gloves. I have a link to both gloves in the description below.
This beef roast has taken on a great color, and that hickory wood has added an amazing smoke flavor to this meat that you just can't get in a slow cooker. Now for the fun part, and that's throwing all the other stuff into the pan. One thing that makes this recipe so simple is how few things really go into it. I have the roast right here in the middle of the pan, and to the top of it, I'm gonna sprinkle on 1 package of Au Jus Gravy seasoning mix. Just sprinkle it in evenly all over the top. This is going to mix in with the fat that rendered out and give us a nice, rich, creamy brown gravy. Next, I'm going to add in 1 package of Hidden Valley Ranch dressing mix. Now, I know what you're thinking, Coleman, you must be crazy, but trust me, this stuff adds a whole new layer of flavor to this roast. Again, just sprinkle the whole package right over the top of the roast. This next ingredient is what makes this a Mississippi pot roast, and that's pepperoncini peppers. This is a 16-ounce bottle of the medium heat peppers, and some people prefer the whole peppers, but I like the sliced ones instead. And why? Because I don't like picking out all the stems later. So we're just gonna pour the whole bottle, juice and all, right over the top of the roast, and the vinegar and the peppers is really gonna pair up nice with that ranch dressing and give it a nice little twang. Twang, is that an official culinary term? Whatever. Next, we're going to add in a whole stick of unsalted butter right out of the refrigerator, and we're going to place it right on top of the meat. This will melt down during the cook, and it's really going to add a nice rich flavor. Then I want to add in 1 cup of beef broth, and it really doesn't need the liquid because of all the internal fat in this cut of meat, but we need it to help cook the last ingredient that I'm going to pour in, and we're just going to add that all around the edges. We don't want to pour it on top of the meat because we don't want to wash off all that powder that we put on top of it. And lastly, because I'm going to serve this pot roast with some mashed potatoes, why not cook those potatoes right in here with the meat? So I took about 3 or 4 pounds of golden potatoes earlier and washed and cleaned them off and took off any of the bad spots. You'll also notice that I didn't peel them, and that's because I like peelings in my mashed potatoes. And as a kid, my nanny used to call these dirty mashed potatoes, and I really like to follow tradition. And we're going to place those mashed potatoes all the way around the edges of that pan. If you want, you can also add some baby carrots, some onions, or some celery in here, but today, I'm just gonna keep it simple. Now cover the whole pan with a layer of heavy-duty foil, and it's gonna go back on the grill for 3 more hours at that same 250 degrees. But before we do, if you're enjoying this video and you're finding some value in it, hit that red subscribe button down below and hit that thumbs up. It really helps more people find my videos. We're using our grill for the last step in the braising of this roast, but in reality, you could really use your house oven for this step. There's really no difference. Now, it's not going to take on any more smoke flavor with this foil covering, but really, what fun would that be?
Make sure you open the lid of your Kamado Joe slowly and let out some of that heat. And place the pan in the middle of the grill. Then make sure that lid will close all the way without hitting the pan. We'll see you back in the GNC kitchen in about 3 hours when this is all done and ready to come off the heat. Then I'll show you how to make my nanny's famous dirty mashed potatoes.
Well, it's been a quick 3 hours, but I did get in a quick nap. Now let's get this pot roast off the heat so we can let it rest for about 30 minutes.
Make sure you wear gloves for this part because this pan is extremely hot and it has a lot of meat juice inside that could spill. Go ahead and close that lid and all the vents because we're done with the grill. While it rests, I'm going to go ahead and take out all those potatoes so we can make up some of them dirty mashed potatoes. And recover the roast with the foil.
While our pot roast is resting, let's go ahead and whip up some quick mashed potatoes so we can throw it on top of it for dinner. Now I have a saucepan here with about 1.5 cups of heavy whipping cream on a medium to low heat. And the first thing I added in was about 2 tablespoons of minced garlic, and I've got it simmering for a few minutes, but don't let it boil. Now while this simmers, I'm gonna go ahead and mash up my potatoes. Now I like my potatoes with a few chunks left in them, so I'm not gonna go crazy with them. But if you like them creamier, take out your electric mixer and go to town. I just love the golden color that these golden potatoes give you. They're nice and buttery looking. And look at that color. Love that color. Now that this is simmered for a few minutes, let's go ahead and add a couple other ingredients. We're gonna add in about 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt, about 1 teaspoon of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of rosemary, about 1 teaspoon of parsley, 1 stick of unsalted butter, and then I've got about 6 ounces of softened cream cheese. Now let's get this all melted and stirred together. Then we're gonna pour it over the top of all of our mashed potatoes. And then mix it in well. And there you go, my nanny's dirty mashed potatoes. This has been resting for about 30 minutes now, so let's go ahead and see how it looks. But before we do, let's review what we did.
First, we tied up our chuck roast and got our grill ready. It then went on the smoker for 3 hours at 250 degrees. Next, we took it off the grill, put it in a pan, and added all of our other ingredients. Then back on the smoker for 3 more hours at 250 degrees. And lastly, it came off the smoker to rest a while we made up some of my nanny's dirty mashed potatoes.
Oh, man, this thing smells delicious. And those pepperoncinis on top. And this thing is just falling apart. Now I'm gonna go ahead and leave it in the gravy for now, so as we pull it apart, it really soaks up some more of that gravy. It's still really hot, so I'm gonna go ahead and use a couple forks to pull it apart. And it just pulls apart so nicely. It is so tender. Now, if yours is not fork tender yet, you can either put it back on the grill at 250 or maybe even put it in the oven for a little while longer. While I'm mixing this up, if I see any pieces of fat that didn't render out, I'm gonna go ahead and pull those out because nobody really wants to eat those. Let's go ahead and serve some of this up and see how we did. The first thing we're gonna do, let's put in a big scoop of my nanny's dirty mashed potatoes right here on the bottom. Then let's put in some of our Mississippi pot roast right here on top, nice big helping. Right there in the middle, make sure we get plenty of those pepperoncinis right on top. Let's dig in. Let's get some of those mashed potatoes off the bottom, some of that Mississippi pot roast, some of those pepperoncinis. Time to eat. Wow, that meat is just so tender. And you know that smoke flavor, that's what we've been missing in this meal. You just can't get that in the slow cooker. And that meat is just so moist. I'm glad we left the gravy in there to mix in with there, because it just added that extra moisture that we needed. And the peppers with the ranch dressing gave it that extra twang that we needed. And those mashed potatoes are just perfect. With that cream cheese that we put in there, I could taste the rosemary and the black pepper. Man, that gave it a nice taste. You ought to try those dirty mashed potatoes. You can continue to make it in a slow cooker if you want to, but this is how I'm gonna make it from now on. Now, y'all go grill something.
Yeah, you'll find me grilling and chilling with Coleman. I'll be grilling and chilling with Coleman. Like and subscribe, turn on that notification bell, drop a comment below, and come grilling and chilling with Coleman.